Hi, and welcome to AWS Community Day. I am Emma, and I'm going to be talking to you about how to build an Alexa skill today. I'm really excited to be sharing with you my Animal Crossing skills that I've made. So I am a Master of Data Science student at the University of Melbourne, and that's me and my dog, David the Dachshund, graduating from my bachelor's. I also interned at AWS over the summer in the startup business development team, working on some projects with them, and I really loved my time at AWS. It has such a unique company culture and the work is really fun and exciting. And I also am a huge Animal Crossing fan. So when I heard about Community Day, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to do something I've been meaning to do, make an Alexa skill, and I could also relate it to Animal Crossing. So I had a lot of fun putting this presentation together for you today. I thought I should clarify what Animal Crossing is. It's a video game franchise, and the most recent one is called New Horizons, and it's on the Switch. It came out in March, and it is how I have been spending my isolation. I put in over 350 hours working on my island. Datum seen there, which is a 5-star island. One of the goals of the game is to get a 5-star island. And it's just a really chill game, really fun. There's always something to do on your island, always some work to be done. So that's Animal Crossing New Horizons. However, this presentation is not about Animal Crossing, although I could talk about Animal Crossing for more than 20 minutes. It's about Alexa skills. So I will be providing an overview of Alexa skills, how to think like an Alexa skill developer, and 2 ways to approach Alexa skill development. Number 1, using blueprints, which don't require any code, and you can get a skill on the store in minutes. And the second way, through some custom code, where you will be needing to use the developer console and coding. And from this presentation, I really want you, the viewer, to be inspired by the ease of developing an Alexa skill and maybe get some ideas and build an Alexa skill this weekend. This diagram here is an example of an Alexa interaction. So the user speaks to the device, and which figures out what the user is requesting, and then calls the relevant skill or API, which then returns the relevant data for the user, which the device returns. And then that may require some more input from the user, or that may be the end of the interaction. Alexa is an event-driven device, with the event being triggered by the user. So when you are developing an Alexa skill, you need to be thinking about this process, this flow, making it natural and conversational, really easy for the user to be using. And if you have a good idea of how the user will be using the skill, will make it easier to develop it. There are 4 stages to an Alexa skill development. So the first one is building and designing those voice interactions, figuring out how it will be used, what functionalities the skill will have, and what resources and such you need to be calling and to build, which leads you into the building stage, where you actually build the skill, the testing and distributing it, because you want people to use it. You can do all of this within the developer console. As you can see here, which is a screenshot of my console, there's building, coding, testing, distribution, certification, and analytics. The analytics page is actually quite interesting, as you can see how users are interacting with your skill. And if they're not using it how you're expecting, you may go back to the design stage and figure out why is everyone exiting after one interaction. And so that's why I find the analytics quite cool to look at, if people are using it as expected. Since this was my first attempt at building an Alexa skill, I wasn't really sure where to start. So I came across these things called blueprints, which are predefined frameworks which you just have to customize to get a skill published in the store. This is the webpage of blueprints. It truly does take minutes to build a skill. There's over 60 frameworks provided by Amazon, ranging from chore charts to adventure storytelling skills to quizzes. So lots of options. And from the blueprints, you're able to have a skill published in the store. For my first skill, I decided to use the fact blueprint with facts relating to how to get a 5-star island, as I thought that would be really useful for people. So all I had to do was compile a list of the tips, and that was all. I didn't need to worry about those user interactions as it's built into the blueprints framework. This is the blueprints webpage. As you can see, you just have to, with text, enter the introduction and the list of facts. So no coding required. Here's my skill in the Amazon Australia store, which you can enable on any Alexa device. So feel free to install it if you're interested in some tips for a 5-star island. Let's demo it. Alexa, open New Horizon tips.
Welcome to New Horizon Fan Tips. Let's start. Create areas on your island, like an outdoor library, cafe or playground. Plant flowers around the island. Mix varieties to make a nice aesthetic. Want some more?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll have more when you're ready.
All great tips, very useful tips. So that's my skill, and playing around with blueprints was really fun as there's lots of options and it was really easy to get started. However, when I wanted to build an Alexa skill, I wanted to be coding it and designing those user interactions myself. As with the blueprints, the user interactions are predefined. You don't have much control over that side of an Alexa skill. So that's why I came across building my own skill from some sample code I found. For my custom skill, I found a quiz framework, which I was able to customize and add my own data and play around with that user interaction model. I decided to focus on the villages of Animal Crossing as there's 397 potential neighbors to have on your island. So I thought a really great source of data, and it actually didn't exist yet. So I thought perfect. So I gathered data on the villagers such as their personality type, their species, and their birthday, and their catchphrase. And I put that into a JSON data frame object and included it in my code. And all of this was done in the Alexa developer console. Shout out to Arzi from the Alexa team, as she gave a really great presentation earlier this year on building an Alexa game at Summit Online, and I stole this image from it. So if you are interested in building an Alexa game, I would also recommend checking out her presentation. So this is the structure of a custom Alexa skill. So it's made up of a front end and a back end. The front end is this user engagement model, how the user will be speaking to the skill, and the back end is the code. It's often done in Node.js or Python, and it often does call a Lambda function in AWS, which is that event-driven functionality, with the front end activating an event in the back end. So this is the structure you need to be thinking about when you are building a custom skill. This is an example of utterances and intents for Alexa. So the utterances is what the user says to the device. So Alexa, open villager quiz. So opening the skill, and then once you're in the skill, it would have a variety of utterances to expect from the user, which then map to an intent in the back end. So for example, here it's tell me about Stella. So that maps to the answer intent in the back end with the value of Stella. So retrieve all of the information about Stella from the data object and return it to the user. So this is just one example of an utterance I had to design for my skill. Since it's a quiz, had to also take into account how to start the quiz, also how to end the quiz, and also how to answer questions in the quiz. That was one example of an intent and utterance, but this is the entire user interaction model that has had to be built for the quiz. So there's ways to answer the quiz in the answer intent, and ways to start the quiz in the quiz intent, as well as intents to end the quiz, end the skill, pause it, and to start. So within the answer intent, there are the ways to answer the quiz. So that's the expected attributes, and they are the slot values. The slot values in the curly brackets had to be imported as well, because we have to let Alexa know all the potential answers. So I did that through importing a CSV I had with all the villager names and the species and such. However, there are some predefined values, such as the month and integer values of the birthday day. So that made it easier as well. There's lots of other inbuilt values that may be of use. And then in the quiz intent, you have to, well, I built different ways to start a quiz, as different users may start it differently to how I would expect. Anyway, and also a top tip, remember to press build when you're building your model, as I pressed save, but not build, and it wasn't communicating with the backend or the tester file. So that was a lesson learned for me. Remember to build. Here is an example of some of the code for the quiz skill. So this is the ask question function and the get question function. So the ask question function grabs a random row and attribute from the data frame, which composes the question for the user, which is in the get question. And the get question return value is what Alexa outputs to the user. And there's also an expected output in another function which checks if it's correct. So that's how the whole file works. There ended up being about 8 main functions to get the quiz working, as well as the data frame. I just stored it within this file. I didn't have an external data source. So that is the code. One great thing about the Alexa developer console is that you don't actually need an Alexa device to be able to test it. You just test it in the browser. So here on the left is me typing my responses to my skill. And as you can see, it worked. It was very exciting the first time it ever worked when I got a response, as I was having a few difficulties. So it was very exciting when I got a response and I was able to start a quiz with myself. However, my skill is published and it's in the store for you to download and play around with it if you want to test your villager knowledge. But let's demo it here. Alexa, open villager quiz.
Welcome to the Animal Crossing Villager Quiz game. You can ask me about any of the villagers, or you can ask me to start a quiz. What would you like to do?
Tell me about Stella.
Stella is a normal sheep whose birthday is the 9th of April. Is there any other villager you would like to know about?
Start a quiz.
Quiz it is. I will ask you 10 questions about Animal Crossing villagers. Here is your first question. What is the species of Claudia?
Oh, tiger.
Hooray! The species of Claudia is tiger. Your current score is 1 out of 1. Here is your second question. What is the birthday day of Freckles?
Alexa, end quiz.
Thanks for playing the Animal Crossing Villager quiz. I hope we play again soon.
Same, so that's super fun. So that's my skill. However, I do have some ideas for improvements. I think it would be really cute to have images of the villagers appear on the display, as some of the devices have a little screen. And all that would require would be an S3 bucket with all the images of the villagers and a new function in the quiz calling that bucket. I think it would also be nice to play around with the voice, as it's a bit monotone, and adding some sound effects would make it a bit more engaging perhaps for the user. I think it would also be good to expand the quiz topics, as it's currently of just the structure of what is blah of villager. So those are a few ideas I have to improve my skill. Reflecting on my building, I found it a lot easier than I was expecting, as I found the blueprints a really easy entry into Alexa skills, and then also all the resources that are out there made it easier to get your hands dirty. So I think with Alexa skills, there's something for everybody. There's no code required to building something totally from scratch, and you can see the fruits of your labor really easily with a working skill. I also think it's great and really accessible that you don't need an AWS account or even an Alexa device to be able to build. All you need is a computer and an idea. Big lesson learnt from myself was to start small and then iterate and improve the skill. Don't try to do everything at once, as I had a lot of ideas, but it was a bit overwhelming knowing where to start, so I scaled back a bit based off of some code I was able to find and played around with that. So I would say give it a go, and if you have any ideas, if you've been inspired by this presentation to give an Alexa skill a go, do it. Like, it's very fun. Make a custom skill for your next games night, or make a, I don't know, skill for your favorite video game. Anything. Lots of opportunities, lots of ideas, and voice is a really cool medium to explore. If you have been inspired to build, here are some resources. The first one is actually the link to AWS Summit, where Ozzy's talk is. There's also the developer resources from the Alexa team. There's also blueprints. Check that out if there's any that would be of interest to you. And also the GitHub of the Alexa team has a lot of code samples to get you started. So I just want to wish you happy building. If you build anything, if you've been inspired by my talk, please let me know. There's my Twitter. If you want to just add me on Animal Crossing, just let me know as well on Twitter. There's also my GitHub. I've posted my quiz code there. So happy building. Enjoy the rest of Community Day. Thank you.